Hey Bulldogs, Chris Bryant here, and strap in because it's time for a CCNA 5-minute video practice exam with 2 live demos on live Cisco routers. So we got a lot to do in 5 minutes, a little bit with static routing, EIGRP, and more. And we're going to get to that first question in just a moment. Just a quick word about my CCNA on-demand video bootcamp, a very important change I want everybody to know about. There is now no time limit on your membership. After some bare-knuckle negotiations with my service provider, who now hates me, but you will love me because I can guarantee that you'll be able to watch all 20 plus hours of the videos as often as you like until you pass the CCNA. So be sure to check that out. Now let's take a look at question 1. I have a very important real-world demo for you here as we start the clock. You're in setup mode, one of those 3, and you decide you'd like to get the heck out of it without saving any of the config that you've written so far. How exactly are you going to do that? And I'm not giving you multiple choice here because the router is not going to give you multiple choice. How exactly are you going to do that? Now we have 3 different types of EIGRP routes, and in your CCNA you basically work with one type, but you need to know all 3 of them and what their administrative distances are. So tell me quickly what those routes are and what the distances are. The administrative distances, of course. And the IP route command, boy do we have to have this one cold for the CCNT and the CCNA. Which of the following, choose all that apply, sorry about that, are legal parts of an IP route statement? Remote IP, local IP, remote interface name, local interface name, all zeros mask, all ones mask. Which of those are legal parts of an IP route statement? Let's jump back to question 1, the setup mode. And what I did right before I started this taping, so I hope it finished, is that I did a write arrays on a Cisco router, reloaded it, and since that's not something we get to do at work very often, I wanted you to see it and see what the result is. So as we can see, when the router came back up, we're asked, would you like to enter the initial configuration dialog? This is asking you if you want to go into setup mode. And I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. It's such an innocent question. And sure, do you want to enter basic management setup? Sure. I'll call it router because I really like to yell and use upper caps. And I'll put CCNA for my enable secret, and if I don't want to set an enable password, I can't go past that. And so if I try to set it to the same thing as the enable secret, it's not going to let me. And it's not going to let me go past the virtual terminal password, the VTY password. So already I'm getting a little fed up with it, and let's say that you go into it for a minute or 2 or 15 minutes or so, and you start configuring the interfaces and the protocols this way, and you just say, you know what, this just stinks. I want to get out of this and I want to go back to the command line. Well, at the very beginning of the system configuration dialog, the actual keystroke that you're going to use is mentioned. But in the heat of the moment, it's easy to miss that. It's Control-C. And I want to stay here with it while I hit Control-C because I want to show you real-world wise that this is not immediate. Because I'll have people say, well, I hit Control-C and nothing happened. Well, nothing might happen for a few seconds. So we may actually come back to this. Actually, let's come back to it after we answer question 2. The 3 different types of EIGRP routes are internal. That's the normal or regular EIGRP route that you're used to. It's got an AD of 90. Your external EIGRP routes with the code DEX on them in the routing table have an AD of 170. The summary route has an AD of 5. If you've never actually seen that AD of 5, please go to my YouTube channel and do a quick search on EIGRP 85, something like that, because I've got a video that shows you where to find that number, because you hear about that number a lot, but you don't see it very often. Let's jump back to our router, and let's try that. There we go. So current interface summary gives it to you, etc. Here's what we want: configuration aborted, no changes made. And in a moment, that's then going to kick you, the router will kick you out to enable mode, and you can just go from there, which we're going to revisit in just a moment because I want you to see this live as well. Which of these are legal parts of an IP route statement? Well, before we get to the address versus interface, I can tell you that E and F are both legal because your all zeros mask, when are you going to use that? You're going to use that likely for a default route, a default static route. And the all ones mask is what we call a host route. and that is going to be a route to one specific destination. So E and F are both legal. Let's call up the router real quick. It hasn't kicked back out, so we will go ahead with the board. Between your remote IP and local IP address, what happens there is that the remote IP address is legal, the local IP address is not. Because with the remote IP address, that's the next hop IP address, so that's what we want. Between the interface names, you can specify the local interface name, but not the remote one, because the remote interface name isn't going to mean anything to our local router. So let's see, yeah, we get all that. I definitely want you to see this live. I'm going to go ahead and stop the clock because we're right at 5 minutes. But this is important stuff. Don't let this throw you the first time you do a router race, because you're going to see, and then get out of setup mode, because you're going to see a lot of these lines and it can kind of panic you the first time you see it, but don't worry about it. So we do an inf and a conf t. Here's your IP route command. Let's take a quick look at that. Destination prefix. So the destination IP, obviously is no problem because that's where we want to go. And then destination prefix mask. All pretty much what we'd expect. Here's where you want to watch things, because if you specify an IP address at this point in the IP route command, it's the forwarding router's address. It's the next hop IP address. If you specify any kind of interface, you're specifying the local exit interface. So very important difference there. So again, which are legal parts? The remote IP address, of course, that would be fine because that's going to be your next hop IP address. Your local IP address is not going to be legal. Remote interface name is not legal. Local interface name is, because you're specifying a local exit interface, and both of these masks are perfectly legal in an IP route statement. So I hope you enjoyed today's video bootcamp and 2 demos. I know we went over 5 minutes there, but I think you'll find it's well worth it. And I'll see you on the next video. Make sure to come out and see us at the Bryant Advantage, and thanks for watching.